Hi, everybody. I'm LHG, Latanya Harris Gooden, and I am the founder, creator, and lead podcast host for Critical Conversations, the network. So, what is the Critical Conversations Network and where did it come from? It is a platform that is dedicated to discussing the 7 dimensions of wellness and wholeness. I am on Facebook and YouTube. So reach out. I would love to speak with you about whatever ideas you might already have about a podcast. You never know. You could be sitting on a gold mine. Hey, everybody. Good afternoon. Good Saturday evening. Actually, I think 5 o'clock is considered evening. Hello, everyone. I'm excited. I'm back on the original night that we started on. Saturdays at 5 o'clock was our original time that we did Critical Conversation. So I'm excited. I'm also excited because I have a very special guest in the virtual space with me this evening. Professor Nkosi Mason is in the house. I came across this young man through Natasha Beautiful Thought and the P3. Shout out to Natasha and the P3 band team and all attendees. And he's just really a breath of fresh air. I think he's been on one of the shows with Fred on Trailblazers, whether he's on the screen or in the comments. Super, super brilliant and insightful and an excellent communicator. I mean, this young man is brilliant and real. And I've been on a few of his lives, and I really like the way he tells it like it is in terms of how we communicate and how relationships can be better due to effective communication. Not that it's going to always be cute and all the flowers and the birds and the I love the trees. It ain't always like that. Sometimes it's like, dude, bruh, sis, what is this? And it's okay because too many of y'all are using this cop out. I don't like confrontation. No, you don't like conversation. And that's why I call this platform Critical Conversations. It's not that I'm confronting you, but dialogue by definition has 2 parts. It's a you and then it's a me. It's a back, forth, forth. Y'all old school R&B people. So because we're going back and forth, as long as we're being respectful, let's just sway. Let's just go with it. So I'm going to pray. I'm going to bring my brother up. Simone should be coming through the door in a minute. Simone, where you at? She should be coming through here in a minute. Whenever I'm live, Simone is not far from it. And I thank God for people who support this platform. So let's talk to the Lord real briefly. Father God, in the name of Jesus, you started last night just really opening us up to a conversation, a beautiful dialogue between the brothers and the sisters. And really, with June being Men's Mental Health Month, help us to not be contributors to the problem. Help us to be a part of the solution where our brothers feel safe and secure in being able to express emotions with no retaliation or backlash. We are chopping down the lie that to speak means to be weak. And we are reinforcing the truth that we are all human. And my brother Fred said it first. We're human before we're a gender. We're human before we are male or female. We are the human race. And then God assigns us a gender. So yeah, I am just grateful, God, that you allowed us to see this day and this opportunity to get to know my brothers in a different kind of way. People don't think that brothers and sisters can have friendships without it being something strange going on, but we are tearing that down as well. because friendships among men and women can happen with total respect. I ask you to bless Brother Mason and his family, his wife, wherever she may be. Thank you for their union. Continue to bless their union and bless their a level of communication with each other. Let them be shining examples to the rest of us who would like to um, have a godly mate. I thank you for those who are going to come into the chat and be blessed, and even the replay watchers who will be refreshed by a good conversation between men and women, not at each other's throats, not throwing insults, not popping balloons as they doing on these little shows on TikTok and all that stuff. We're just having a good, wholesome conversation. I give you glory. I give you praise for healing afflicted bodies, for healing troubled minds, for the love that you're going to show to our brothers as they remember that their mental health matters. In Jesus' name, amen. Bro, hey there. Hey there. There is Simone. Hi,
Hey,
y'all. I'm so excited. Brother Nkosi Mason, I tell you, I admire you. I am proud of you in terms of your educational pursuits, being a stand up guy, husband, um, so talented musically, and we'll be learning even more about you tonight. P3 is just one facet of what Brother Mason does. So we'll get a chance to learn more about your pursuits and how we, as your sisters, can support you. Simone! Hey, girl. Hey.
hey.
How you doing, girl?
I'm good. I'm on my cell phone. I was trying to come through my laptop, but it's okay.
It's okay. You made it, girl. You made it. So if you weren't in the chat last night, shout out to Frederick Leroy Beatty. I just gave him a middle name.
Lord, ma'am,
I don't
you
know what
just
his
give
real middle
people
name was.
names.
Frederick Leroy, get in here. We had such a great dialogue last night. There were
We
some
did.
very transparent moments, and I have to thank him. Shout out to Trailblazers with the Z Radio, where I had my start, and it was just good. I took notes, and he talked about if you're gonna have healing, then there's gonna be some pain. Ooh,
That's good. That's good.
it's practical, but that thing will preach. Hey, Auntie Emma. And I thought about how sick I was. I had a bronchitis slash pneumonia slash flu. The devil was busy. Gargamel put a spell on me. I don't know what that was. But I was so sick. The fever had me so sick. Fever can kill you. Did y'all know that? If your fever is too high, you can land on Jesus' porch prematurely. How I get here? Look at it at Jesus' feet. How I get here? I was delirious. I did not know where I was. I knew I was hot. I don't have a thermometer. So I got to put some things in house that I can, because I live alone now. But I was like, this fever got to go. And I felt crazy. And when you're super sick, healing feels just that much better. When the Lord healed me, Brother Nkosi, I was like, oh my God, thank you. I was so, the worse you feel, the better healing feels. If that makes sense, it sounds crazy.
Oh, word.
The more down you are, when God pulls you out, I'm getting an echo. Simone, you may have to go on mute. Okay. The more down and out, hi, Pastor Stacy. When the more down, out, and out you are, the more in a pit you are. When God does deliver you, you just go crazy. Like, oh my God. I thought I was going to leave here. Like, Lord, come on. I'm only 50. Don't let my child get a call that we found her mom. No, Lord. Just no. Auntie Emma says, Brother Mason, are you ready for a new middle name? I got to give him one too. I'm going to get to Nkosi Aloysius Mason.
auntie Emma. Don't
There it
start
is.
nothing.
There it
Don't
is.
do not entertain her, okay?
Nkosi Aloysius Mason. Let me get this thing going. Welcome, Brother Nkosi, to Critical Conversations, the network. We are glad to have you here. He is a supporter. He is the musical director of the P3. He is a husband. He is an educated brother. He is just a lot. And I'm going to let him give his own discussion about who he is. Nobody can tell it better than him. So let's do that. I'm going to give my brother the floor. Welcome and tell us who you are, brother.
Well, good evening, everyone. So I definitely appreciate you allowing me to be here with you guys here
Yes,
this
sir.
evening. And yeah, I'm definitely I can say that I'm the oldest of four. And
Okay. See?
yeah, so so the pressure was on growing up. Grew up with my grandparents. My parents were not really in my life as much as I like.
Okay.
But I grew up with my grandparents and grandparents don't play,
They
you know.
don't play.
So when it came down to it, it was you go to school to learn and whatnot. And I was definitely an unruly child coming up, very, very ruthless. And in a lot of ways,
Mm.
I acted out a lot as a child, due to not having parents and things like that.
Wow.
And so all the labels, back in the 90s, like, it's like, oh, he's unteachable or,
Uh-huh.
whatnot, and so um but I'm blessed that my grandparents hung in there as long as they did.
Yes.
um, and I was just as I think I kind of broke that phase when I was about fourth or fifth grade. I kind of just broke that phase, like, I'm losing friends and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I had to kind of learn how to deal with what was going on or what had happened.
Mm.
So especially when you deal with a parent who deals with substance abuse and things like
Okay.
that,
Okay.
it is very difficult, to be the product of that,
Wow.
to know that you've come into this world, but the parents that you have, didn't make the best choices. And
Mm.
so, growing up, I had to learn that I could still make good choices in the
Oh,
midst of
yes.
the bad choices that were made, and
Jesus.
so my grandparents pushed me to go to school even though I didn't want to, and went to school. And then I guess shortly into my adventure, probably 5 or 6 years into it, my mother passed into that journey,
Mm. Okay.
and
Yes.
which is a separate bag to unpack. But
Mm.
but I lost her and then my grandmother who raised me the year after.
Wow.
And so yeah, and so in the midst of that, I was just kind of like, well, there's no point in continuing school and things like
Okay.
that. And so I came out of school, and this was maybe a year or two before Marygrove closed. And of course,
Okay.
that was the thing that affected me and 28 other students. And so we had
Mm.
no reason to give up, right? And
Right. Jesus.
so yeah, so I pretty much gave up. I was like, well, I'm going to be in the workforce. I got married almost 10 years ago,
Okay.
and so I had a lot more things I was focused on other than
Mm-hmm.
that. And so through a lot of pursuits and a lot of organizational shifts and things like that, I was afforded an opportunity where now I work for a nonprofit organization
Okay.
that assists students with obtaining their associate and bachelor's degree.
Oh, wonderful.
And so I'm a kind of boots on the ground academic coach for the
Yes.
organization. And I got my bachelor's degree through that organization, and
Wow.
then later on my master's degree. And
Wow.
so yeah, and so a lot of things have happened.
Mhm.
Blessed that I was given a lot of wisdom early on in life, and so I definitely came up as the unpopular, opinionated individual. So
Oh, me too.
a lot of different so where people had the hot takes of back in the early 2000s, like it was definitely the cold take. And so but I avoid a lot of pitfalls in life and things because of the wisdom of my grandparents, and then taking that on and being blessed with that level of wisdom at a young age, and just sitting in that seat, even if it felt
Mm.
uncomfortable.
Wow.
And so pretty much who I am today is not necessarily a byproduct of what I've been through. Thank God for
Mhm.
that. You know,
Jesus.
but it's a byproduct of I can make different choices.
Yes.
I can make different choices, and where I could have said, "Forget about it. I'm going to do the same thing my mother did, same thing
Come
my
on
father did."
here.
I could have done the same things, and made the same choices, even though they were mine,
Mhm.
but I decided to do something different with my life, and it's yielded me,
Yes.
much different results. It put me in
Yes.
a place where I was
Praise God.
really able to really embrace uh, a different space for myself, and then
Mhm.
create a different narrative. And so now with this individual that holds the pen, I get to write my story instead of letting my experiences and letting
Oh,
shortcomings do that for me.
that is powerful. I just heard Rewrite the Vision. We're working with Brother Andrew Griffin with the Rewrite the Vision is a youth empowerment initiative where it's like people speak certain things over you or expect certain things to happen to you because of what happened
Right.
to your parents, and they all, yeah, he ain't going, yeah. But when you rewrite it, the Bible talks about writing a vision and making it plain. Sometimes you got to rewrite it.
Hmm.
Sometimes, some people got the wrong vision for you,
Hmm.
but God is very clear with his plans for us in Jeremiah 29 and 11. You make some very good points. Let me go down to my notes. So let's go back to the fact that you said you were labeled unteachable.
Hmm.
Many young people, boys and girls, who tend to maybe act out or have different kinds of outbursts or different kinds of responses, we are very quick to label them unteachable or um, feel as though they may need medication or what, and that could be true, whatever. But I often wonder, do we stop and figure out, well, where did this child come from? What happened or didn't happen in this child's life that could be leading to some of the outburst responses or not showing up or skipping school or no doing this and doing that. We don't want to dig deep to
Right.
find out what's behind that. We just want to throw them in adult ed, throw him in juvenile delinquent school, whatever, and hopefully he succeeds there. But like, what about the social, psychological aspect of maybe what that child has experienced or did not experience? There's an importance on what you do experience and then what you don't experience. They're pretty much like your father or mom being there and being horrible is one thing, or the absence of them.
Hmm.
You got both are devastating to a child, and to be labeled that. And I know people who also have men who've also gone through that, and it's coming up in their outbursts, it's coming up in their decisions. How did you overcome that label? Because many succumb to that. Many just fall right into it. Yep, my mama was this, my daddy wasn't there, so this is just what I'm gonna be. So lock me up now. How did you overcome? Hi, Sandra.
Yeah, so it was difficult in that overcoming.
Mm,
And so it really began with I was probably maybe 8 or 9 at the time, um, and the school that I was going to had a martial arts program, and my grandparents signed me up for that,
mm-hmm,
and so it was a source of discipline, of course.
mm-hmm.
And my grandparents were very uh, so back in the day, the teachers could spank children and
Oh
things.
yeah, tear your butt up.
Yeah, and so that was me, and my grandparents okayed it. So, it was often 3 in a day. So I get one from the teacher,
Ooh,
one from the principal, and one from my
you was
grandparents.
getting towed up, bro.
Yeah. And so that was a big factor into it. But I realized earlier on, like looking back, that earlier on the intervention levels were only surface level. They were like, why is he
Mm,
acting like that? Right. And so they never really questioned my grandparents, like, what has happened or anything like that. Like it
okay.
never became that conversation. And so my actions and the way that I acted didn't begin with me, you know.
Mm.
So and I felt as though at the time, I think things could have been intervention could have taken place earlier on if that conversation was had. It was
Wow.
just really surface level, and it was kind of like it started and ended with me. I made a choice to be unruly, ill-mannered, and I made that choice, and I just did it just because I had grandparents, and grandparents would never, so like, and so, but it went back to a reality of realizing that, you know, like only thing that began with me was how I felt, and that was, oh, so and so, their mom and dad came to pick them up from school, and I have grandparents
Ooh,
that's doing that for me. Like, you
come
know,
on.
their mom and dad's taking them to a birthday party. I don't get to go to
Wow.
those.
Mm, mm,
Sleepovers, I
mm.
don't get to go to those.
Wow.
Camping, I don't get to have that experience. And so a lot of it, yes, it began with what happened with my mom and me acting out and that,
Mhm.
but the other side of it was, my grandparents just saw it as the same, like not me being unteachable, but me
Mhm.
just acting out,
Okay.
and that's all they knew, and um, so I had to, after a lot of the discipline, the karate and things like I did karate all the way through high school, and so what began was just as a point of discipline, self control became a way to exercise and move and things like that, and I did so many competitions over the
Oh,
across
wow.
the state and things like that. And so a lot of those things kind of kept me out of trouble.
Okay.
And then my introduction into music was a big part of that too. A
Mm.
really big part. I think I was maybe 9 or 10 when I started to really get serious. And so music became something that helped to keep me out of trouble and to help kind of manage those emotions and then focus inward a little bit more. So that's why I'm as reflective, and I like to do a lot of introspection and things like that of
Yeah.
myself so often, because sometimes I have to take that moment to step back, and it doesn't have to be a moment of something traumatic has happened, but something good has happened. Let's go back and recap. And so I do that up to this day, and that's a coping mechanism that helps me to realize that there's still value and there's still worth in me,
Mhm.
even though it didn't start out that way.
Wow.
Now that's good.
Wow. That is
That's
good. You
good.
want to chime in on that, Simone?
Wow. In LHC's word, that's a whole timber Bible.
It
That's
is.
all I'm gonna say. Man, that's good to know that you still have worth and value regardless of who or what is around you. It's amazing because it show it not only that you know, but you can walk in that confidence and you can say, I am somebody even though a lot of people don't feel like I am.
Mhm.
Yes.
So
Yes.
even though you went through what you went through, it still allowed you to have confidence in yourself and not like boasting and not like being arrogant about it, but you know that no matter what I went through, I'm still valuable, I'm still needed and necessary. So that's very powerful.
It is. And can we go back to the fact that shout out to the grandparents
Yeah,
Mhm.
that
definitely.
literally took these children after they had their own, raised their own, but literally started over and raised somebody else's as their own and made sure they were raised in and yes, they probably were strict, but we needed that. I do not regret the strictness of my upbringing, not one bit. Now, when I was going through it, oh, this is hell. The devil's a, oh my, this is abuse. This is neglect. I'm calling CPS. You felt all kind of stuff when you're going through it. You just don't want me to live. You don't want me to have any fun. Oh my God. But when you look back at hindsight, it kept me from not every danger, but a lot of things that I would have been exposed to. And even when I did expose myself, I heard my grandmother or my mother, nah, girl, this ain't what Christian girls do. Nah, girl, it's too late. Nah, hang up that phone. What they talk about? If you're talking at 10 o'clock, you're talking nasty.
Mm.
Hang that
Mm.
phone up. And that's
Mm.
true. I tell some brothers that today. Why you're calling me after 10, you're nasty. You're
Mm-hmm.
45, 55 years old and you're nasty.
Right.
Okay? Don't call
Mm.
me. I tell them now. Great. Dan says Granny is the reason I am the woman. Like, oh, sister, we got to have a whole nother show on grandparents. I'm telling you,
Mm.
Absolutely.
we got to have a whole nother because, but now, okay, you bring that to a point. You mentioned something that when the grandparents are raising us, there's only so much they can do given the climate they were raised in. Therapy, what you talking about? What's wrong with you? Go pray and drink some burners, huh? What you
Oh
mean
yeah.
therapy?
Go
Oh yeah.
Therapy, go,
fast.
I'm gonna beat your behind. That's gonna be a therapy. Go sit down somewhere and drink the burners.
Right.
So while we love them and appreciate them, we have to be honest and say, because of the generation, our grandparents are either baby boomers, many of them are, or the silent generation, or they were raised by the silent generation. So that particular generation, you don't air out your dirty laundry. You don't come down when you testify. You can't say what you're really going through. You just have to keep it simple. God paid my light bill. Woo! Dum, 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 dum. And you shout. You can't say I was depressed and I wanted to unlife myself. But gosh, she wanted to do what? She wanted to do what? What sin did you commit that made you want to do that? Somebody go put him in the Tyrion room. He did the Holy Ghost. No,
No. Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
This is life happening. And you mentioned that you lost your parents. Many people deal with grief different ways. And I don't know if men were ever taught who taught brothers how to navigate through grief. Whose responsibility was that? Who, I mean, did we have a national grief convention? And we call all the brothers in and say, okay, everyone, today's lesson is how to deal with grief. No, we didn't do that. Especially not when I was growing up. You really weren't, men weren't really allowed. It was like, don't cry, don't let anyone know you are having a moment. Suck it up, man up. Those types of phrases. And I've heard get over it. You know, you're a man, you know, and so you don't deal with life because you're a man, a robot?
Right. Right.
You Terminator 2? What you supposed to be? Let's talk about that, Brother Nkosi. So at what point did you find yourself learning how to navigate emotions?
Wow.
Well, it so the navigating part, I guess I can say that I did not learn what navigation was until I became older.
Okay.
And
Mhm.
so but I think the most pivotal moment where I learned or I began to understand that process a little more in depth was at the deathbed of my mother.
Ooh.
So and so one of the things that I can say was that, you know, she did what she did, but I harbored the anger. I chose to harbor the anger. And
Okay.
so before I, you know, I think the emotion was chosen for me and then I
Mm.
chose. And so I decided that, yes, I'm perfectly valid. You know, I'm carrying the pain for four people, not just me. And
Phew.
so, and as the oldest child, like it's my responsibility to take on the mantle, right? And so,
Mhm.
and it was a very, very heavy weight to carry. And I remember that I was called down to say goodbyes and things of that nature. And I sat in that room all of about maybe 10 minutes, and my mom was not responsive. She
Mm.
could not say anything or do anything. But at that moment, I felt that anger from 20 plus years earlier kind of come out
Ooh.
in that moment. And so I began to express that, in broad detail, and just saying like, I don't understand why you made the choice that you made, and
Wow.
and things like that.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
at that moment, as I was beginning to air that out, at that moment, I felt forgiveness come
Ooh,
over
glory to
me,
God.
because even though I had gotten saved 5 years earlier, I said, well, God, you can take all these other areas of my life, but this anger, this is for me. I'm going to keep that. I told him not to touch
Mm,
that area with my actions. And
mm,
so when I went into that room and I began to air out everything that I felt, and the pain that my brothers and my sister felt, I felt at that moment that I learned what forgiveness was. And then I learned that it was at that point I'm navigating. And
Mm,
so I took those words, those lessons, and then I began to teach my siblings how to kind of go
mm.
through. And it's three, like I got two brothers that are under me, and my sister is the youngest. So I began to really teach them. And then part of that teaching, was social media. So I began to share what I've learned through social media. And
Mhm,
so to help other people who are going through as well, because I don't gatekeep. And so anything that I learn, anything that God tells me, teaches me, even my shortcomings, I'm very transparent about. And
my God.
so through those experiences, I began to learn how to not only navigate emotions in general, but I came away with the truth was that
Mm,
as she made the choices she made,
yeah.
so did I. And so I
Wow.
decided to be angry, and I decided to hold on to that, and I decided it was okay to be hateful towards her. And I
Jesus.
was maybe 14 or 15, and she just kept lamenting that we're going to go home, we're going to be a family. And I remember standing in that room and telling her at that moment that I'm almost grown, I don't need you.
Mm,
mm.
my God.
And it was a flesh move for sure. It was a
Okay.
flesh move for sure, but it
Okay.
hit in a way that I actually sat with those words longer than she did. I'll put it that way.
Mm,
And I realized at that moment that, yes, she made the choice she made. I made my own too.
yeah.
And the decision to stay in the arms of anger was not fueled by her choice anymore.
Mm,
It was fueled by my reaction to it. It was fueled by how I
ooh,
chose to internalize that
mm,
particular thing. And so navigating is I will say is still a ongoing process.
yeah.
Navigating grief is still an ongoing process. I lost my grandfather 3 months ago. And
Mm, so
so
sorry.
we're
Jesus.
going on 4 now, going on 4 months ago. And so navigating losing the patriarch, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that was a whole thing in and of itself. And so I was thrusted back into that seat where my mother was and where my grandmother was, like, all right, we have to learn how to navigate this together. I'm here being present and prioritizing healing first,
Yes.
before I can
Oh, I love that.
before I can teach out,
Woo.
so it was a big, 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 big part of being able to navigate.
Come on, sir.
That's
It's tough to
good.
navigate while yet being unhealed. And so, and people try, but the only thing you can
Yes.
do for people that you teach is to lead them into unhealed places. And
Come
they'll
on.
wonder why they're feeling worse
Lord have
than they did
mercy.
in the beginning. It's because we let someone who was unhealed attempt to heal us. And so
Ooh,
I didn't want
wee.
to be that individual.
Ooh.
My
Let me
God,
take
today.
that in. Let me take that in. Let me tell you what I saw when you were talking about the navigating. You know how I have a fear of large bodies of water because I cannot swim. But there's one thing that probably would cause me to learn how, and that's if anything happened to Gabby in water.
Mhm,
Mm,
I would jump in. There wouldn't be no I don't know how. Because sometimes you only learn when you jump in,
mhm,
mm,
when you have to learn because it is a matter of life or death.
mhm,
Now you're gonna make me learn. If I want to survive, you're gonna paddle, you're gonna move your arms,
yeah.
you're gonna
Yeah.
And it's something about my child. If God forbid anything ever happened, and I would have to reach into a burning something, I would just walk in. Okay,
Yeah.
Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
fire. Yup.
Yeah.
She in there. Oh, did she walk in the fire? Yup.
She did. Yeah.
She did.
Yeah.
And if she perished trying to save her child.
Right.
That's
Right.
what I saw. It's like sometimes we can try to make, well, how would you learn to navigate? Child, I just jumped
I went through it. Yeah. Yeah.
and said, Lord, help me. Here
I
I is. Some things you don't even know that you even need to learn how to do it until it's like, this is navigating.
yeah.
I think I am navigating. I didn't want to
Mhm.
be here. I didn't want to learn it like this, but experience is the best teacher, they
It
say.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
Some things you just have to go through to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I think I was telling her one day in one of our conversations, we don't know how strong we are until we deal with life head
Ooh,
on. Because that, like she said, there are things we don't know we can do until we actually do it. And so when we actually face those issues, for example, like she said, if Gabby were to get in a body of water and drown, she wouldn't, even though she doesn't know how to swim, she would make sure that Gabby would be saved.
I would try to save her. Yes. I wouldn't care about me. And that's just the mom in me. That's right, Auntie Emma. Stay the course and trust the process. We say that. It's hard though.
And it's the same thing with God. We wouldn't
Ooh.
know how to trust Him if we didn't go through these life issues.
Come on. When
There's a
your
song.
trust is really built.
There's a song by James Fortune. I don't know if it's hit by him, but he's involved in the song. It says, "I wouldn't know you like I do." He goes through these
Mhm.
different scenarios. If I didn't have a rainy day and whatever,
Mhm.
I wouldn't
Mhm.
know how to trust you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's why, and this is probably a crazy analogy. When you have people in alcoholic anonymous classes, the best people to talk about the 12 steps is the ones who have been through the steps.
mm,
You can't I can't stand before anybody and tell them step one, step two. That's not my testimony. But you bring in somebody who has survived and has been in recovery, has been sober. I'm telling you, I know what it's like to relapse. I know what they that testimony, that yeah, that's the one I want to talk to.
and
Because
this
they
is
have
why,
been there.
yeah, this is why the Bible says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb
And the word of
and
our
the word of our
testimony.
testimony. Because if we didn't go through it, how would we share it with somebody else?
But why is it that we single out men and we act like they don't get to go through nothing? They supposed to just go brush your teeth and wash your face. And everything is just, it's like women are allowed, even as little girls, I talk about it all the time. Little girls, oh, I'm so sorry, little Susie. But little rerun is like, boy, get up. Boys, don't you dare shed a tear. You are a boy. No. But mama, my leg broke. No. Put it back on.
Because mentally and physically, they're trained to be tough. They're trained
Ooh.
to they're trained to protect. They're trained to go hunting and go fishing and do do what it is necessary to provide for their family. And by them having all that weight on them, like Frederick said last night, it's a weight on them that we know nothing about.
Now we don't know nothing. And we sometimes, let me just go here. I can talk about Latanya Harris Gooden because I know her very well. Um, the way I express myself when I'm feeling insecure or uncovered by a man, I'm coming out with words. My words cut. My words. I've heard in my lifetime. I came out of a home where words were used that cut. So I took in those words. I saw a woman say things to a man that would probably bring him to his knees, but yet he stayed.
Mm.
So when I got into my own relationships, I gave that out. I'm like, ooh, why did I say that? And I've lost friendships, relationships, because during arguments, And I try to justify, would you provoke me? But there's still some things you just should never say.
Right. It's
There's
certainly
still some places you just should not go. Go ahead, brother.
yeah, it's certainly true. And we'll go blockbuster here and rewind the tape. But so so we were talking about, men not expressing emotion. That was definitely how it came up, and so um scrape on your knee, you break your arm or whatnot, you better hold it in,
You
you know
better.
yeah. And so the issue that comes with that, obviously it stems from my grandparents. And so, so I didn't hear that from my mom or, my dad and things like that. I heard that straight from my grandparents. And so what that does to us, unfortunately, it's painted up, and it's made to look like toughness, right?
Mm.
Actually cripples us more than we understand.
Yes.
Like, we take on this mantle, calling it strength because we can carry it,
Ooh.
right? And we know we are biologically, physically and emotionally and mentally able to carry these
Mm.
things. And so we're like, well, we're tasked this responsibility, and I've been carrying it all this time, so I might as well. Right.
Mm.
And so when it comes to expressing those emotions and things, that was definitely something that I was definitely sold against growing up. Like, yeah, like, something hurt. Yeah, you cry out in pain, but
Yeah.
you get over it just like that, and you're moving on to the next thing.
Yes.
Don't think it was until I started really kind of like dating my wife and getting into marriage where I learned how to express that emotion. And it's not, and for me, it's even that, can be difficult because you don't know what emotion to employ. You just know what you feel, and you just express that in words.
Yes.
So it may not come with an emotional response or a tear. It may not come with, throwing a chair across the room or anything like that. And for me, it's just solely words. So if I speak in a very firm tone, usually I'm coming from a place of frustration,
Mm-hmm.
or, I'm stressed about something, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
very firm about that. And if I'm sad about something, I'm slightly less firm, but, every man is kind of different, but
Yes.
still that those touches of, men shouldn't, men shouldn't, men shouldn't.
Mm.
The thing is, it doesn't often come from fathers, it comes from mothers too.
Mm. All
So
right.
we're told by, my grandmother said more than my grandfather did, and so, like, these are things you just shouldn't do, and the thing is, if I was given this, why can't I express it? Why can't I should tell someone how I feel and things
Yes.
like that? And so when you're in a marriage space, like, you don't have a choice. You don't get to say, well, I'm gonna just hold on to this, because for me, anything I hold on to will evidence in my actions, and I'm not a good liar at all. So, if I am angry about something, like, it will show, and I'm not one to make someone feel what I'm feeling, but, my action was, I'll look back and I'll say, I think I was a little bit more angry than I thought, but that's not every man's reality. And so, but what we're doing when we strip a man from being able to express emotion, we're actually, you know, placing a bandage where his emotions should be expressed. We're saying, like,
Ooh-wee.
yeah, oh, you broke something, we're going to put a bandage on it, but keep moving.
Yeah.
Oh, you lost your parents, we're going to put a bandage on that, but keep moving.
Mm.
Because, you know, this idea of strength coming from not crying is actually the antithesis of strength. It actually, like I said, it cripples us. It keeps us from embodying who we are. And so
Mm.
last week I posted something, saying that for men, that, like, being a provider should not be a personality trait.
Come
And
on.
unfortunately,
Woo.
Unfortunately, it has become that, because it's been
Yes.
attributed to us by society, by those we love and those we surround ourselves with, and say, like, we're out here chasing the bag, and that's all I know, that's all I do, and that's who I am, right? But going to work is action, not emotion. The
Ooh.
only thing we choose to
That's
express, something
good.
that doesn't have an emotional
So
attachment to
good.
it, other than clocking in and clocking out. And then on
Mm.
Friday, biweekly, weekly, or monthly, however you're paid, you get a certain amount of money, And through that amount of money, there's the emotion. So now we're taught that, like as scripture tells us that, the love of money, right, is the root of all evil.
Yes.
We're taught
Yeah.
to chase something and to love it enough to keep chasing it. But I
Mm.
love ourselves enough to express our emotions and reasons why we do the things that we do on a daily basis. So I do take very, very a lot of pride in being able to provide for my house and things like that, but that's not all that I am. And so we have to take a step back, understand that we are able and capable and should be allowed the space to be able to express what it is we have
Mhm.
going on inside. And it allows us to be able to be free from the chains of cultural constructs that tell us that we
Yes.
can't do
Yes.
something. And so, and then we're not passing that through the next generation. And just as
Yes.
I said earlier, is that our problems didn't begin with us, right? And so now we're perpetuating something that now our children and grandchildren, it didn't begin with them, right? And so we're saying, men, don't cry, don't do this, don't do this. We have a lot more don'ts than do's.
Ooh,
You
come
know,
on now.
so and our dues are so
Wow.
few because if as long as we're working and we're coming home every day, and we might wash the car on Saturdays or whatnot, as long as we're doing those things and our presence is here, that's all we have to do. So we're actually being reduced, and we're allowing ourselves to be reduced because we find that our only out is putting hours on the clock.
Ooh,
And so we really
jeez.
have to step back and
Yikes.
understand that the emotions that we have are real, they are valid, and they should be expressed just as our counterpart. And the moments that we decide, and sometimes we do decide, the moment that we decide that this is not the place for us to express our emotion, or I will not choose to express my emotion, or something of that nature, we are only validating what our mothers and grandmothers and grandfathers and whomever have
Yes.
been saying for generations. So we are perpetuating a habit,
Mm.
and we are perpetuating something that truly does not help us to elevate. And so we wonder why we can't get to that next tax bracket. We can't move up in our marriages. We can't move up in anything in life because we're still allowing ourselves and we're choosing to be bound by the reduced version of who we are.
Wow.
Yikes.
Ooh, let's talk some numbers.
Ay, ay, ay.
Over 6 million men suffer from depression per year, but male depression often goes underdiagnosed. Do
I'm
you
sorry, you said how many?
over 6 million men suffer from depression each year, but male depression often goes underdiagnosed.
Shh.
So since this is men's mental health month, I want to know, women are always coming together. I mentioned this last night. Women's conferences, heal her, be her, love her. What do men do for their mental health, brother?
Well, I know for myself, I have a small network of guys that I go around and I hang out with from time to time. And if we're not hanging, we're calling, texting, and things like that. So I stay
Mm.
very locked in with some of my guys and things. But that's been very helpful. And like I said, music has been a very big part of that. So while for myself, I didn't really deal with like anxiety or depression or things like that. It hasn't been my experience, but I have siblings who have, and so through
Mm.
their experiences, I've learned and I've grown to understand that. And so, but I believe the biggest thing for me was the partnerships, the friendships that I have, the circle, and I talk a lot about evaluating that circle. And
Okay.
so though for me, most of my friendship based are female. So but there are specific conversations that I have with men,
Mhm.
and we talk about whatever needs to be talked about. So if we're having a tough day and things like that, like we do have that conversation, but I think often enough before I even have those conversations, to be honest, I have that conversation with my wife.
Okay.
and that helps. That helps a lot to be able to have a space to say, "This is what happened at work today.
Mm-hmm.
We're stressed about this particular thing,"
Mm-hmm.
and and not really look for a solution, but just to be in a space where I can say, "I just need to throw out this particular set of words and maybe an emotion that's attached to that." And yes, I'm going to keep moving, but I would love your insight. And so
Mm.
but I know that that's not everyone's reality for those who do deal with anxiety, depression. I do have guys within my circle who do. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I do myself is, like I do um, instill the value of community. And so that's one of the things with mental health that we talk. It's easy to say, well, see a therapist or see a trusted friend, but I believe that there is a community that is necessary
Yes.
to help to combat it. And so
Yes.
to combat those thoughts and feelings and things like that, but also be a space where we can actually be able to express those things out, and yes, we're going to keep moving forward. Yes, we're going to continue doing the things, but they can walk away knowing that there is a space for them. And and so for me, like the empowerment motivation page that I have is just that. We do kind of break down some of those conversations, and recently having some similar talks that you've had here
Mm-hmm.
regarding mental health, and it's so important and that's been my only thing, is that if I just know that there's community necessary, there's presence that's necessary, and then sometimes I've got with guys and we just sat there. We were at a dinner table. We sat there for 30 minutes, not saying anything. We just sat in the space.
Wow.
So sometimes you don't even need to say anything
Wow.
in those
Come
spaces.
on.
And so, and it's so cliche. You were saying, like, it's easy for girls to get together and to, do the brunches and things like that and talk about things. But again, we're going back to the previous conversation we're having about, we're so busy chasing the bag, right? And so,
Yes.
like, we're putting hours on the clock and things like that while our life clock is just ticking down, ticking
Ooh, come on
down.
now.
And
All
so,
right.
Eesh.
the time we could be spending in the company of another brother that can help shoulder some of the weight of what's going on,
Yes.
we're choosing, providing, over wellness.
Mm. That's a good point.
And so, and that was me too. I chose provision over wellness. And so, we would
Mm.
love to put 50, 60 hours on the clock and know that we're getting 10 to 20 hours of overtime, and DTE doesn't have anything on me because it's going to get paid, and things like that. And
Yeah.
but what we realize is that for me, I came to many, many times I've come to places where I become very burnt out. And so, where chasing the bag, I was tired from just getting up, you know.
Mm.
So and a lot of wisdom came from the wife, like, you're working too hard, you're doing this,
Yeah.
you're doing that,
Yeah.
and that's when came making decisions by making organizational shifts. And like I said, I'm fortunate to be in a space where I do work for a nonprofit. It is kind of a hybrid job. And so, I have the flexibility. I can say, I need 30 minutes for me. And I can
Yeah.
say, I'm going to take that 30 minutes for me. And then I'm going to add that 30 minutes into the day so I can make up that 8 hours,
Okay.
but I'm able to do those things and have an organization that fosters autonomy, flexibility, and wellness. And so, but it wasn't really until I joined this job almost 2 years ago that I began to understand the power behind wellness, not just in general,
Yes.
but as a Black male. And
That's
so
good.
it's so much more than just bringing home the bacon, right? It's so
Mm-hmm.
much more than just simply coming home. It's being able to get up, be effective in the workplace, when you come home, being effective in your marriage, and when you're out with your friends, being effective in those places. And so
Yes.
we can't really do all of that if we're consistently doing what culture has reduced us to. And so until we really rise above that, and that's where the healing starts.
Oh, yes.
But until we can rise above that reality, then we will forever be chained by the emotion, the emotions of being burnt out and feeling like you're not enough and feeling inadequate and feeling all these different things. as a byproduct of following what culture tells us to do, what our partner might tell us to do or whatnot.
Mm,
And so we believe in, and like now I'm a big believer in wellness. I'm a big believer in
good.
time out and saying, all right, I need this moment to do this, and
Yes.
and taking that time out. So I do encourage, my other brothers and things like that to
Yes.
consider taking a moment out of your day and saying, yes, you can still go and punch the clock, right? But you can still channel in some time to really deal with you. And
Yes.
that's so important.
I love that. Let
Wow.
me go back to something that you said that it brought up some thoughts. So you use the word partner, and you mentioned that many other brothers are taught to, provide, and we're chasing the bag, and you all don't really have that space to prioritize wellness. So in those social constructs that we talk about, the woman is taught that the man is supposed to do everything, pay for everything, provide for everything. And some of that, I know many women who subscribe to that, and they feel like it's their job to go out and burn out and work from sun up to sundown so that she can live a comfortable life. Thank you, Pastor Levante. Thank you. I'm hoping we all can get out and support you. So if it is a true partnership, and maybe in the 1940s, 50s, when women did not have to work, when they were liberated enough to be able to just stay home, have the children, that's a job too. But it was set up to where even our TV shows from back in the day, Leave It to Beaver and all those other shows, you will see the man with his briefcase. Bye, honey. She would come to the door. Bye, honey. And her and the kids would do whatever. The kids would go to school. She would start cooking, cleaning. But as time has evolved, um, and financial things have changed, and how our economy is, we've had to have it where both partners work in many cases. If you are a true partner, you want your spouse to prioritize his wellness. As a matter of fact, you would be like, I'm gonna buy you a ticket to Natasha Beautiful Thoughts men's event. You go, don't worry
Right.
about nothing. Your clothes are ready. Just go and just enjoy. We would like push you to do that because you make a good point. If that man prioritizes working over wellness and then he snap on you
Mm, yeah.
or snap on the kids
Yeah.
or harm himself, how productive is that? The
Oh, it's
check
not at
look
all.
good,
Yeah, it's not at all.
but it's not
It's
productive.
right. And then again, but you're right. People are subscribing to that men need to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D, and the other alphabets that go along with that.
Mm.
That, and a societal construct of that,
Yes,
again, it cripples us because now, like you look at the economy today, you're gonna need 4 jobs to be able to do, but at the same time, if you have a partner, like you have to be under them too, so
right.
how do you fit that in to also being able to do what you're tasked with being able to do? So we fall out of this balance, and then the love that you have becomes transactional.
Ooh, come
you
on.
know so and so it's kind of like you were saying earlier, like, it's hi honey, bye honey, and
Yes.
so you go punch the clock, you do what you have to do, you come back and you hand over the check, and you go do whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a making of a transactional relationship, a transactional marriage. And so in
Mm-hmm.
those, it's, when I swipe your card, it should approve, right?
Mm.
And if it declines, I'm on the phone blowing up at you. But if
See,
I do the same
Mm,
thing, I can't do that, right?
come
Like I
on,
mm,
I can't justify that, but I put up 12 hours today, you
come
know,
on.
I had a stressful day. I couldn't talk to you about it because you're ready to go to Walmart and shop and whatnot,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so we don't have this space where I can say things are not okay, or I need to vent some emotions out of things like that, it
Yeah.
becomes transactional. And so,
Yeah.
and any relationship that's transactional, generally, in my opinion, are more an acquaintance. And
Yes.
so, and that is
Yes.
more of a transactional thing where the relationship we have is purely because we may work together or we're working on a project or
Mhm.
however that goes, and that's where our interest starts and ends with, but
Wow.
a marriage, a transactional relationship, is all right. We made a business agreement, and so you go out and make all the money, and I do whatever at the house. And
Yeah.
so that's not what we sign up for. So why do we say in sickness and in health? Why do we say for richer or for poor?
Mm.
If if I go down, and as one who deals with the autoimmune, like, if I go down, like, as most men, everything stops.
Mm. Okay.
So, and so,
Okay.
but if you're not there to be there to lift me up and to keep me lifted, if you're not making sure I'm hitting my doctor's appointments and things,
Okay.
then how can I measure up to the standard that society's already put out? And then
Yes.
how can I avoid what you might think of me if I fall short of that? And then what
Ooh.
would the world think about me if they found out that I deal with an autoimmune and now I can only work a part-time job, but I still have to bring that home? Or if that's not the case, how do I continue to work 65 hours a week, have an autoimmune disease, and still be effective in marriage, be effective on the job, and then the only thing I'm doing is handing over a piece of paper that only
Yes.
allows you to do something, to bring something into the house,
Come
but the
on.
love that we're supposed to share is not evident. And
Come
that
on.
is just purely, purely like, all right, I gave you a 12-second hug today. That's a check
Ooh.
box.
Wee.
We slept in the same bed. That's a check box.
Yes.
Rather
Wow.
than like you were saying, like, you're going to a men's event, you're going to this, everything is ready for you to go. And I'm blessed to have a supportive partner that supports me in everything that I do, my musical pursuits and things like that. Most of my shows, she goes to those shows and supports me in those shows. And so
Mm.
it is a point of wellness as well for her to have her presence is wellness for me. And
Wow. That's
so and
powerful.
so and so and so for those who do deal with things on a mental health, and though that has not been my experience, presence is still important. And so even if there's nothing you say, you just sit in the crowd and watch me play, or if you are out there, you're my number one groupie or whatnot, like you're doing those things. And so the developing a community of people who desire to see you elevate, not relate, but to elevate,
Mm.
is so important, because there are a lot of mental health groups for men on Facebook and things, but when you
Mhm.
go into those group spaces, it's my life sucks today, and everyone's agreeing, right? No one's talking about we're going to elevate above this. We're going to,
That's
put
good,
on
brother.
the resources and things like that.
Yes.
Staying in this one particular place because that's the one thing that we can all converge on. And so
Yes.
the point of agreement, but there's no point of
No
how to how to-
solutions.
right. And there are no
Come on.
solutions. And as a man who is, we are attuned to wanting to problem solve and to find solutions. Those places are not sufficient for us. But
Mm.
when we're relegated to, oh, you have mental health concerns and things like that of varying whatever, you might be schizophrenic, you might be manic, you might be these particular things, then they attach limitations on top of limitations you already
Okay.
have just for being a man.
Wow.
And so
Woo.
now, not only do we have the chains that have been there generationally, there's ones we let people put on
That's deep.
just
Come
by way
on,
of diagnosis.
sir.
Just by way of diagnosis.
Ooh, wee.
So how do we get to a place where we're saying we're going to do more than just sit here and talk about, the mental challenges or the physical challenges that we may
Mhm.
have? Let's talk about how we're going to rise above. And
Yeah.
like I said, as someone who does deal with an autoimmune, that is a constant conversation that I have.
Yes.
It's like I have to get up and do these things, not just because I need to bring money home or things like that, but because everything that I do comes with a lesson that I'm able to teach someone else. And so when I stop getting up, or when I stop valuing who God has created me to be, when I stop
Yes.
recognizing my worth in everything that I do, then I'm also letting down in a generation that's watching me, a
Yes.
generation that's still trying to yet find my footprints in the sand.
Oh, that's
And
good.
so, how do we do that if we stop moving? And if we
My
stop
God.
and the wind blows, and then now those footprints are covered, and now they're forced to make their own footprints
Come
and
on. Come
things
on.
like that. And so, at that point in time, who's leading who? At that point, who's right,
Wow.
who's wrong? And then, if I am wrong, who's going to correct me? Who's going to
Wow.
be able to get me to a place where I can say, okay, I messed up. I need to learn more about this. I need to go back into the drawing board and do this, or I need to revamp my community. I need to reevaluate my circle because the people that are in my circle said to jump and I wasn't supposed to,
Mm.
and things like that. And so, when it comes to mental health, when it comes to wellness, if if it's one thing that I've learned is that if you don't prioritize wellness, it becomes a mental health concern. And
Wow.
mental health concerns do not stem just by themselves. It's from a lack of
Mm.
wellness.
A lack of wellness.
Whoa.
It
This
comes from
is
that
good.
place. So we say like
Yes.
not enough love. There's not enough grace extended. You didn't take the kid to the park on Sundays like you promised. You didn't show up when you said you would. You didn't do all these things, and so that becomes a wellness concern. And then through how they're able to, and unfortunately in most cases, not be able to internalize things becomes a mental health concern. And so in terms
Mm.
of overcoming the mental health, we have to begin with wellness. We have to
Mm.
start there, and so yes, you could take a pill for certain mental things, and you can go to therapy and things like that. But when you step into those places, we're not talking about how manic were you today. We're talking about how are you. Those are wellness questions. Those are not mental health questions. Those are wellness questions. Do you feel safe in your home? Henry Ford asks you that all the time. Do you feel safe in your home? Do you feel like
Mm.
you're going to harm someone? These are
Come
wellness
on.
questions, and we don't ask enough wellness questions. We just ask, how mental are you? We ask, what
Mm.
diagnosis? We ask, what are the symptoms that you have? We ask what pills you're taking. But we're not asking, like, when is the last time you just took a walk in your park? When is the last
Yes.
you just decided to go away for a day? What is the last time you said, today I'm just going to do things for me? When is the last time? When is the last time? When is the last time? And so when we ask those kind of probing questions, those probing wellness questions, you begin to find out what kind of man you're dealing with. And a lot of times, what we find is that
Yes.
you're dealing with men who were not poured into enough
Come
and
on now.
children, and then you wonder why they snap so quickly. You wonder why they're so reactive and things like that. It's not just because of it's like I said, it didn't start with them. And so it's not just something that didn't start with them. It's now they've had time to learn how to internalize, and they still may struggle with internalizing it. It's the only thing they know how to do is just
Yes.
to get it out. So it's just like a child. A baby doesn't know how to tell you that he's hungry, right?
That's
There's
right. That's
right
good,
there are
brother.
certain cries, right? There are certain cries that the mother and the father begin to hear, and they say, "That is the hungry cry. That is, I need my diaper changed. That's the
Yes.
thing."
Yes.
Because there's not, so it starts and ends there. And so when you tell a boy not to cry, when you tell a boy not to do this, not to do that,
Yes.
you are honestly crippling them. And so the only way they know how to react and to tell you that something is wrong is to snap, is to become
Mm.
reactive, is to prioritize their work over you, is to go out drinking with the guys, is to go and do things they shouldn't be doing
Come
and
on.
whatnot. And so these are all reactive things as a byproduct of a lack of wellness that's not been well internalized, that's become a mental health concern
Yes.
that we are choosing to relate to and take a pill for,
My Lord.
but
That's
not
good,
stepping back
brother.
and asking about the
That is
wellness.
so
That
good.
is so key. That is so key for us.
That
It's
is
so
so
key for
good.
us.
My God, this hour has gone by so fast. I want to address brother made some good comments. Hi, Frederick Beatty. He's talking about, he says wellness is a start. He's encouraging you. You better say that, brother. He as a man, it's important to be aware of the people we allow in our universe. More specifically, we allow in our orbit. I agree with that. And I responded that I hear men say that about what kind of woman they want, but it's not the kind of woman they end up with.
Right.
A lot of men go by what they see, what's bouncing and jiggling, and you want all these wonderful, intangible, beautiful things. We should have support. We should have. But are you getting that? Or are you just getting good sex?
Mm.
Well, I mean, people will choose how they internalize.
True.
And so
True.
that's a part of it, right? That's part of it, and so some guys might say, well, I didn't get enough love as a child, so I need someone that's going to kind of like have that mothering sort of energy
Mm-hmm.
their way.
Mm-hmm.
So I might choose someone who has that, and sometimes people end up choosing the opposite just because they can get to the bedroom, right?
See? Come
Get to
on.
that, right? So they look for the low hanging fruit, and they become more of an optimist or
That's it.
opportunist in that.
Ooh, wee.
That's
And the
good.
thing is, and that is even a byproduct of a lack of wellness. And
Yes.
so,
It all comes back to
so
that.
it all comes back to it. And
Mm.
so, and so wellness or the lack thereof informs decision making. And so,
Yes.
and even who you choose to be with in that regard comes from that. And so like a lot of guys, like I've been in the dating world and things like that, high school and college and things like that, and I've learned a lot over those years. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is that, when you are with someone, a unhealed man is so dangerous.
Oh,
They are
my
they
Lord.
they are a danger that they cannot even comprehend.
Ooh,
They know that
wee.
at that moment that they snapped or that they said something they shouldn't have and they lost everything. And then
Ooh.
now it's, well, if you can't be happy with me, you can't be happy with anyone else. At these things, these are why the things happen. The media, the news, and things are quick to say,
Ooh,
well,
wee.
this person dealt with mental health concerns. No one ever talks about the wellness. They mom might say, oh, he was a great child growing up and he never did wrong and things like that, but he was told not to express his emotion. He was told not to do all these different things, and so he could have expressed to you a different narrative that could have changed how you parented the child, and then they could have had a different trajectory. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we catch them. We realize that those interventions are just a moment too late. They're a few years too late because at the moment that they were trying to express to you how they were feeling, you shut them down, that you did
Mm.
not allow them. And so now, yes, in their decision making in terms of who they choose and who they lay down with, they're either going to choose low hanging fruit because they don't have to employ a lot of emotion. They could just be who they are. They say, well, I have a job to do, and you're just for tonight. But choosing a life partner becomes a deeper question.
Yeah.
And some people will choose a life partner based on what they see now, but not really dig deep into the person that they're with because they
Yeah.
don't do the same to you. And so
Ooh, wee.
times, we're just people who love each other so surface level, we're willing to marry on surface level, that when depth happens, right? When adversity happens,
DEPTH.
requires you to dig deep.
Yes.
No one wants to go to the garage and grab the shovel because they're afraid to find
Ooh,
out
wee.
they're buried.
No
And
one wants to
sometimes
dig
what's
deep.
buried for us as men are our
Mm.
emotions. And then when you find out what those emotions are, and you cannot mentally understand it or mentally take it all in at once, the relationship is a disarray. And so
My Lord.
point, at that
Ooh.
point, then we've come to a place where that's how mismatch intentions happen. This is how
Yes.
hearts happen, and then this is how hurt people go and hurt other people.
That's it.
That's how those things happen.
Oh, this
Oh
is
my
so
God.
good. This is so good. But going back to something that you said earlier, so if a man comes home and you said something like you want to talk to your partner, I had a bad day, you want to talk about it and attach an emotion to it. What I've been accused of is always wanting to fix. And the response is, Tanya, I didn't want you to fix it. I just wanted you to listen.
Mhm.
But a part of who I am, and it's not intentional, it's just who I've been all my life, is if you tell me something, the assumption is you're telling me because you want an answer. But sometimes with men, maybe they're just telling you to release it. Not so much. Okay, now, so what we got to do is you may not want that in that moment.
Right.
So what I would like brothers to do, because we talking about solutions, is if you're dating someone and you're still getting to know them and you're confiding them about how your day was and you're adding that emotion to it. If you don't want a solution, maybe just say, I just want to get something out. You don't have to fix it. I just want to express it. Um, so just hear me out. And then that
Mm.
would tell me, don't go get a notebook trying to crunch numbers and figure out, okay, here's the answer. Because even that can come across like you didn't even give me a chance to try to fix it. I really just want to talk about it. Because I want to be better at communicating as a woman to a man. I plan on being married again. I am going to eventually be dating again. So I don't want to make the same mistakes I made before. So let me put this comment up here. To be a fixer, being a fixer is not a bad thing. You have to realize when it is time to fix or just time. Yes. And I didn't, because I didn't know what I didn't know. If it's not communicated in a way that, okay, well, honey, sweetheart, I just want to, yeah, I got some things I want to get off my chest. Just hear me out. And then yeah, because it's kind of weighing heavy on me. Okay, well, I'm going to just listen. That's how I will respond. If I don't know you well, I haven't been dating you long enough to know all you want me to do is listen, then I am going to be the normal LHG and be like, okay, so what we could do, because that's me and that's the mother I was raised by.
Right.
My mother ran the house. She wore the pants. She provided. She took care of all the affairs. So I am in a sense a product of my environment, in that I've seen my mom be so strong that in my relationship I assume that role of project coordinator, foreman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But
Right.
if I'm told in a calm and respectful way, Tanya, I know you are getting to know me, and I want to be able to share these things with you, not to get a solution from you. Thank you for being so kind and wanting to, but really, can you hear my heart? I would be like, yes, I can, because that's less pressure on me.
Right.
Because you don't want me to fix it.
Right.
So yeah, I can. I can. I don't want to always be the fixer. I just jump at it because I don't know anything else, if that makes sense.
Right. No, it
But
makes
some men
perfect sense.
don't need that, don't want that.
Right. But sometimes we come to the table a lot of times having a solution or have figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so adding to it, feels like it's more brain power for me to go back and process.
Ah,
But
that's
for
good,
me,
bro.
I'm actually the same way as you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife said several times, like, she'll voice a problem and I'm quick to resolve.
Mm-hmm.
And, while it's part of my nature, I don't want that perceived strength to add to an imbalance in the marriage.
Okay. Okay.
And so sometimes I have to kind of step back and just a lot of times I'll just sit there and just process and just
Okay.
process and then I'll
Process.
ask
That's
specific
good.
questions or or sometimes I'll wait to see if she says something like, what do you think about this? And so what happens a lot of times is because we see a problem, we want to fix it, and we can definitely, like as a man, like I'm learning more how to do that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But but understanding that again, like I was saying, sometimes I'll get with the guys and we'll just sit there, right? Like no one's talking about a specific problem. We're just in a space. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes all your partner needs is just a space to release that particular thing into
Okay.
it. Sometimes it's me. And so sometimes I have to ask specific probing questions to kind of get to the heart of the matter or to figure out um what exactly is the driving point. So is this something that I need to resolve, or is
Okay.
it something that I just need to step back and listen? And the problem with that I've dealt with is that I've let a lot of my strength contribute to imbalances at times. And
Mm.
so where I think I'm helping, I'm actually contributing to the
Wow.
fire. And
Wow.
so, and I don't have to do that. It's not
Okay.
something that has to be done. It's okay to take a step back and say, all right, I'm just going to listen to what you have to say. And then if you ask me,
Mm.
then
Yes.
then I will go
Okay.
ahead and volunteer whatever
Yes.
it is I have to say toward that specific situation. And
Yes.
at that point, they're ready to receive you.
Yeah. I
Asking
like that, brother.
if they're just venting out a particular emotion and they're not looking for a solution, they're just looking for you to listen.
Yeah.
And that's and that's all they want. We have to understand that we can't just fire the jets off and just
Yep.
solve the problem. It's a danger
Yes.
for
That's
us,
me.
and I'm Prince Charming. Like it
Mm-hmm.
does not have to be that energy at all. And
Okay.
so I would have to say I do kind of identify closer to what you how you've come up in that too. And so
Mm-hmm.
not just by just by nature of being a man, but also my upbringing as being the oldest of
Yes.
four. Like it was
Yes.
always my job to problem solve. It was always my job to
Mm-hmm.
make a way out of no way.
Yes.
And so a lot of that comes with me when people ask specific questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very nowadays, I'm very, very cautious of how I answer a question or
Okay.
realizing if there's a question that needs to be
Is
asked.
there a question? Ah,
Sometimes there isn't one.
wow. Ooh, that's good. And let me give you Brother Beatty's comment that we're going to wrap up. Mr. Mason may agree with me with this. Some of us as men tend to brood and tread water in the sea of our emotions, and most time we end up drowning because we were not given an emotional lifeboat.
That's powerful.
That's very powerful.
It's
That's
powerful.
very powerful.
That's very
Wow.
true.
But
Very true.
I the last night when we talked with Fred, I wanted to, every time I end one of these moments, and thank you for being here, brother, I wanted to end with something that we can do as women to lend to the mental health of our brothers. So tonight's recommendation is to celebrate his achievements. So whatever that may be, if he's doing, if he's going back to school, let's celebrate that. If he's decided to um, elevate on his job or take on a different career path, let's provide support. If he's decided to heed the call to ministry and maybe step out and become, a minister or whatever, as the community, as women, we need to support. Many times we're there for the failures. Oh, we do a whole campaign. I knew he wasn't. I knew that wasn't going to work. See, I told you. Let me call my friends and tell them what a failure you are. Let me put a
Mhm.
post on Facebook and tell them what this man did.
Mhm.
But we're not there to celebrate the successes. And sometimes success can be subjective. I'm not talking about just huge monumental things. If he came home and expressed to you his emotions and felt free about it, celebrate. Because many
Indeed.
men aren't doing that. And keep
No.
that space, keep that door, keep that channel clear of obstruction, because I can tell you from experience, there are men out there that refuse to allow their own spouses in that vulnerable space because they've had mama issues, daddy issues, cousin issues, whatever kind of issues. And they will not allow, because of a lack of trust and the fear of being rejected or whatever, and you close it. It's nope. I was told I'll talk to everybody else but you. Oh, and I am a talker. So imagine a talker trying to get along with somebody who don't want to express, at
Right.
least not things of importance.
Right.
And our love languages, I hate to be cliche, are different. When the person that I'm in love with sits down and talks to me and really opens up to me, that's my love language.
Mhm.
Not always gifts or so much acts of service. That's cute too. But just the fact that you loved me enough to open your world to me.
Mhm.
Not to solve all the time.
Right.
I'm learning that. But even
Right.
just to express, how else do I get to know a person if I don't just sit back and just listen to them without response per se, without, got an issue. When you said, bullet point 17, because I can be that. I can be that. But just listening and, oh wow, soaking it in, being a sponge, making those mental notes.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's important though.
Mm-hmm.
That's hugely important to be that individual willing to take that step back. And
Yep.
like I said, I'm fortunate to be have a very supportive spouse, and every
Praise
win
God.
that I've ever had was celebrated, and that I've never had.
Wow.
Never
Wow.
had that growing up. Like celebrating birthdays was just kind of like a cultural thing, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like, but when I, you know, did well with music, like, my grandparents weren't there, like, like my mother wasn't there,
Mm.
and when I finished, my associate's degree, like, like my grandparents there, my mother chose not to go, like,
Mm.
so there's a lot of there's a void there, and she knows
Yes.
I'm feeling that. So, and the biggest one was also when I finished my bachelor's degree. It was kind of like I've never felt as celebrated at that moment as I did in my life, and it turned to opening up to the wellness journey, losing weight, and things like that.
Mm.
It opened that door from
Wow.
celebrating those wins. You would never know. And so, and now from last weekend, running in a 5K, like these are things that come from just celebrating us, being in a space,
Yes.
like, and it could just be simple as like you said, us coming home, like I'm
Yes.
so glad you're home, you know, and,
Yes.
and things like that. And so, I do also want to provide a couple of things, if you don't mind.
Oh, I would love that. Yes.
So one of the things that I saw um, on Facebook, and I was like, "This is going to be perfect for this space."
Okay.
Someone had posted saying, "When you heal, you will realize some of your favorite people prefer the wound,"
Ooh, wee. Yes.
and
Wow.
that there made me realize, this talk that I do all the time about
Mm-hmm.
healing and about evaluating your circle, why that is a thing. Because when you begin to develop a self concept, which I say is a non negotiable set of things that about yourself that
My
evidence itself
God.
in terms of boundaries, in terms of relationship building and things like that. When you find that people prefer the wound is often like your favorite cousin, your favorite, you know,
Yes.
whoever, and you're like, so you were only down with me because I was down.
Hello. You like that part, the downtrodden LHG.
So you were with me then, but when I started to elevate, then I was different. Then
See?
I was better than everyone else, or I was,
Yes.
and that certainly happened, especially when I went back to school. Like, I had family
Yes.
members and some friends or were kind of friends alike were just kind of like, oh, so you better than everyone, huh? And
See?
that
I
was the
hate
energy
that.
I got. And the next thing I wanted to elevate was three, or kind of like a pillar, if you will. I
Okay.
know it's something that the Trailblazers radio would probably give me some props for. But so I took the word men and I was just kind of like, how do we elevate, right? And so how do we elevate in terms of our mental health, and how do we elevate in terms of wellness? And so there
Mm.
are three things we're going to use the acronym MEN for.
Oh, let's go.
So the first one, the M is going to be for molding. So we need
Ooh,
to start by molding and showing folks the behavior that is required. So, little boy falls down. Yes, it's okay to cry. Yes, it's okay to express that
that's
particular emotion.
good.
Do that. Mold them. And then on that road to molding them, the E is going to be for empowering them.
Mm.
And so you have to validate the emotion, but also say it's okay to continue that. It's okay to be in a space where you can. Um, certainly, you can certainly take someone from feeling less than to someone who could feel above. And so the last one, after we have empowered them and after we have molded them, now we nurture.
Oh,
So, and that also goes in line with passing that down generation to generation, from friends to friends, cousins, whomever, community. So, nurturing that is so important. And so, through those particular pillars, and I'm sure more, that we can get into a space where we can come out like there could be
yes.
men born that are healed, that are coming out into healed mother and father, that are coming into more healed relationships and things, and then they grow up healed, and then taking those lessons again, repeating that cycle of
Oh, that's
molding and
good.
empowering and nurturing people. And so, and you don't have to be anyone's parent to do that. You could just have
That's right.
lived experiences that could put you in a place where you could be able to do that for someone else. And so those are some key points that I think that can be very
Excellent.
instrumental and overcoming, and in terms of mental health, and in terms of cultivating wellness.
You don't hear nurture and men in the same sentence too often.
No, you don't.
This is groundbreaking, brother. You just gave me an idea for a whole workshop. I'm gonna give it Fred because this needs to be expanded upon in a setting where more brothers can really. You don't hear about nurture in men. You always hear maybe nurturing children, nurturing women, or you might hear women trying to nurture men. I want to
Mm.
be a nurturer to them. He may not need that in every sense, or he may want to have that in a certain way.
Mhm.
Sometimes being overbearing and aggressive is not nurture.
No, it's
You're
not
just
at
loud
all.
and obnoxious.
No, and we realized that a lot of times it's what also factors into that is the village, right? So, like, it said, like, we all need a village and things like
Mhm.
that, but oftentimes for men that village gets cut off at 18.
Ooh, that's a good
That village
point.
gets cut off at that point in time. They say,
Ooh wee.
go out into the world and things like that. You don't need us. And
Wow.
so, but for young ladies, that village continues to further on.
And how unfair is that?
It's
That
so
social
unfair.
construct. 18, you're on your own, boy.
Yeah, but those on your own dudes get with women that are still within these particular villages, and then
Yes.
right, and then they begin to, like I said, they've been crippled by not being able to express their emotions, and they're oftentimes we don't realize that when you cut off that village, that came with encouragement, that came with empowerment, the
Yes.
level of molding, it came with their
Mentorship, maybe even.
values. It came with all of those things. And you said because you reached the age of 18, that you have everything that you need. And so
Mm,
therefore you don't need. And so
wow.
now we've been branded at that particular moment. Like the goal for me when I was a teenager, the goal that people had in my community was at 18, you can go get you an EBT card. If you had a child,
Wow.
you can go get on WIC and
Yep.
et cetera, et cetera. You
Come
can get
on.
all these different things,
Come on,
and
brother.
it's looked at as a source of value and
Yes.
worth. And so, like, you can have taxpayers pay into your lifestyle so you don't have to do this, that, the other.
Yes.
Though we still had to get out and work, we still worked enough just to keep the benefit,
Come
and
on.
so, and that's again another deeper bag to unpack. But
Ooh.
but when it comes back to full circle here, we have to understand that the mental health of men often go undiagnosed. It goes under the
Yeah.
radar because we're taught not to express. And if
Mm,
we're taught to express, then those interventions can come to life, and
yes.
we can go deeper than topical. It's not like putting Eucerin on the skin, right? You
Yes.
just rub it in a little bit, the sun does the rest. Like, how does it get into the skin? You got to keep rubbing it in, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Hmm.
But and so, but when you stop that village, that lifeblood,
Mm,
you have enough in you,
Jesus.
to be able to go the rest of your life without. And then now I have to build my own based on what I have at 18.
Right.
As how much does a kid know at 18? And you're telling them they have enough. And
Yeah.
you're branding them as people who are ready for the world. And
Yes.
you've only prepared them to get so far until they
Yes.
have a problem that you won't help them deal with because now they're
Mhm.
grown. They have to figure it out because they
Mm.
have to figure it out. And so now we're in this
Mm.
position again. We are perpetuating what happened in the prior generation and the prior
Yes, we
generation,
are.
and we
Yes,
are
we are.
not dealing with today's kids. And
Yes, we
so,
are.
so important and highly paramount to having a successful marriage, a successful friendship, rearing a child, and things like that. Healing is so important. Mental health awareness is so important. Wellness awareness is
Yes.
so important. And when we really factor in and we realize that we prioritize wellness, it doesn't mean they won't have tendencies in terms of mental, but they'll have a way to what we talked about before, navigate. They'll know how to navigate that. And so while they may not be able to swim on their own, their village can help them.
Mm.
Take that village away, they can continue to tread water and things like that and still get from where they are now to where they want to go because their village is helping them. But if you cut them off and they drown and you say it was his fault, the parents were the one that told them that they were ready. The child never said that. Now the child
Wow.
a byproduct of the conditions that you left them in. And so now they're left to internalize things as they are. And if they already don't know how to internalize things well, you
Mm-hmm.
can't be upset with what you get on the other side of that.
Mm. That is so powerful. We got to do a part two. Oh my goodness. This was so amazing. Thank you, brother,
Of course,
for accepting this last minute invitation. I'm doing this all month, just having a moment to connect with the brothers that are in my world, in my circle, who I'm getting to know more and more about, and it's refreshing. I think it's going to help me even in my own decision making, going into dating and going into changing my mindset about relationships. It's good to have that male perspective. Thank you for this. This has been absolutely outstanding. I cannot wait to do part two. We're going to get out of here next week, next Wednesday. Andrew Griffin, our resident confidence guru, visionary of the Rewrite the Vision youth empowerment program, and Josiah Jones, comedian that's been on BET. They come together and they do what's called Praise and Punchlines, a comedy plus singing. The Griffin girls are up and coming artists in the area. I think Serenity might be 6. The oldest is about to be 16, and 4 beautiful young ladies who are gospel singers, and they've been traveling like crazy. So I hope that you all can tune in on Wednesday to learn more about the Praise and Punchlines coming in July. I believe they're doing it every month. This month, June, they did it on the east side of Detroit on Mac. It was amazing. So this is going to be a thing where they're going to take this to different churches. If you want to have this at your church, I think part of helping with mental health is to engage in things that help promote peace and laughter and joy. If you always doing stuff that is violent or around violent people, then how do you expect to maintain mental health? So that is going to be my theme this month. Just having these different conversations with my brothers, learning more about the brothers and what we can do. Hi, Sister Vicky, you made it. What we can do as the community, as moms, daughters, wives, sisters, friends, to celebrate our men. So next Wednesday, the 18th at 7 p.m., meet me here. Announcement, Pastor Stacy Wells from Whole Life Church is doing her women's conference this September. The theme is Released, Stepping into New Territory, September the 26th through 28th. There's information that I've been putting out there with the flyers. It's 3 days of events. There's vendor opportunities available. If you want to be a vendor, reach out. Also, we are doing a souvenir booklet. So if you have a business and want to get your information in that, more info will come about that as well. So we're going to get out of here. Brother, thank you. Thank you all for coming through the chat. Thank you for tagging people, sharing this. This has been enlightening and incredible. And I hope that the brothers do feel empowered, and you can elevate from this and get nurture from this, because my brother has brought the wisdom as he always does. So I will bid you all good night. Have a great Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, even if you may not be one biologically. If you are someone's role model, someone's mentor, happy Father's Day to you as well. And I don't want no baby mamas asking for Father's Day cards. You're not the pappy. You are not the pappy. We're not doing that this year. All right. So thank you, brother. I appreciate you. And good night, everyone. See you Wednesday. Bye-bye.